Hello, my friends. Today is the 8th day of June, 2020. It is Monday morning. It's a beautiful day. I just got done doing a huge lawn. I'm on my way to do another one. But in between, I thought I would make this video, and I want to tell you a testimony to what happened at my residence early Saturday morning it started about 11 o'clock Friday night, 10:30, 11 o'clock Friday night, and went into the wee hours of the morning of Saturday morning. And before I go into the story, I want to first say this. God still does miracles. And some people just think that it is only for specific things, or for specific people, or for someone dying of cancer, or it's just something along these lines. And I'm talking about, in this case, a healing. Okay, now throughout my life, I've been raised in a Christian home with two good Christian parents, and I've seen a lot in my life. I've said this before. I've seen things that there's nobody on this earth going to tell me that God doesn't exist, that Jesus doesn't still heal people, because of the things that I've seen. And Friday night into early Saturday morning was just another one of those miracles. There's no other way to say it. So here we go. I'm going to get into the testimony. And as you know, it started Friday night. I went to bed, and I had fallen asleep. And about 10:30-ish, 11, somewhere in that neck of the woods, I hear my brother knocking at my door. When I go to sleep, I shut and pull my door shut to the master bedroom. And I know for him to be knocking at my door because I have real bad insomnia because of the drugs that they had me on with the chemo and my illness and all. It really messes my sleep pattern up. So for him to come knocking at my door like that, I automatically know something, it's like one of them things when you get your phone ringing in the middle of the night, it's not for anything good. Maybe it might be a wrong number. That occasionally happens, but when someone's knocking at your bedroom door, there is no wrong number. So I immediately woke up, and I raised my head up, and I remember hollering out, "Yeah, what's up, what's going on, whatever." And he was extremely upset. And he said, "I think Minnie is dying." Now, who's Minnie? Minnie is a puppy that's not a full adult yet. It's not quite a year. Very tiny. Not the runt of the litter, but very tiny dog. In the range of a Chihuahua size. It's not a Chihuahua, but it's in that range. It's a very tiny dog. It's a female. And of course, I rose up even more, and I said, rubbing my eyes, "What? What'd you say?" "I think Minnie's dying. She looks bad." And I'm thinking, where did this come from? I went to bed, she was playing, blah, 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 running around, this, that, and the other. So I was like, okay, hold on. I hopped up and put my shorts on. And by the time I got my senses and got myself orientated and got out of my room, he was already back into the living room, into the chair, and he was holding her like you would an infant. And this little puppy / heading towards being an adult, I call it a puppy because it kind of still is, was laying on its back with its little tongue sticking out the front of its mouth. It was not moving. It was just kind of sitting there. It had a glazed look on its eyes. Its breathing was very shallow. Very weak heartbeat from what I could feel. And I'm not a doctor, but I have a pretty good, decent, idea about a heartbeat and a pulse and stuff. And I looked at him and I said, she's going to die. At one point, I actually said, she's dead, because I did not feel nothing. I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. She was laying in her little bed, and I happened to look over, and she was slumped over in a position that, didn't look normal. And then I remembered earlier in the day, late in the afternoon, we have cigarette butts in our yard, our neighbors smoke and all that stuff. So I remember catching her with a quarter of a cigarette, about probably yay big, with a filter. And she had already, had it into pieces. So even though she may not have ingested the nicotine or the tobacco, even it touching her saliva, pores in her mouth, that chemicals will get in that way. So I ran back and I got on the phone after remembering that, and I looked it up, and it said so many micrograms are lethal, that it's lethal. But I didn't know how many micrograms that dog would have ate or even touched, and they said even the filter is very poisonous. And the thing went on to say that it's not so much the tobacco as all the chemicals that, make up a cigarette. There's a lot of chemicals, and those are very poisonous to an animal. And they're poisonous to a human because, they cause cancer. So anyways, she was in bad shape. There was nothing. We were scratching our heads, And I got on the internet and I looked up, if you take them to the vet, what's the vet do? And if they have a lethal dose, the vet really doesn't do anything but just try to, give them some saline, an IV, and some type of antacid for their stomach. So, but that's all they can do. I mean, there's not much else they can do at that point. They got to let happen what happens. If it's going to live, it's going to live. So I told my brother, there's no sense in taking her to the vet. We can do this stuff here at the house. So I prepared a concoction of water and some antacid, mixed it in real good. And I said, just keep dipping your finger in that and rubbing it on her lips, And I went back to my room, mind you. And I have a little tiny Bible. It's like one of them little New Testaments or the little Psalms Bibles. And wrapped around it with a rubber band is a prayer cloth. Now, if you go to church, a prayer cloth is when your minister and others in the church pray over the cloth. They anoint it, and they give it to someone who's sick, for them to lay it on, and it's a healing type thing. It's just it's a faith-based, thing. And my pastor gave it to me when I was really at my, death's door. Told me to keep it under my pillow. Well, it brought me through. I know it did. So I had it wrapped around my little Bible with rubber bands, and I took it out to my brother, and I said, lay it on her chest, and we'll pray for, a few minutes or whatever. And he laid that Bible on her chest, and I said to my brother, there's nothing else we can do right now. Even if we wanted to go to a vet, by this time it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing we could do. Not till they open at like 9 or something. So I said, I'm going to go back and lay down and I'm going to pray. So I went back to my bedroom and I got my Bible, and I remember laying it on my chest, and that was the last thing I remember other than praying for, a few minutes. And I fell right to sleep. And I dreamt that the dog was fine, that it was running around, wagging its tail, this, that, and the other. And I only slept like 45 minutes or an hour. I guess because I was still subconsciously worried. And I popped up out of the bed and I went out in the living room to check on Minnie. And I asked my brother, where's Minnie at? And he said, she's in the blanket. I laid her on the chair, the lazy boy, and I wrapped a little blanket around her, and he laid the little Bible on top. I said, okay. So I went over and I pulled, the little blanket apart, the two ends apart, and as soon as I did, her little head popped up. Little ears popped up, and I knew at that point she was alert. She was no more comatose. She was alert. She wasn't out of the woods. I could still tell she was weak, but she, popped up and looked around to where she was completely gone, earlier. I mean, no response. And I knew at that very second when that little dog's head popped up that it was going to be fine. I knew it. I knew in my heart. My soul, I knew that the Lord touched that little puppy because we prayed so hard for that puppy And I remember praying, Lord, it hasn't even had a life yet. You know, please, you know, if it's done something, it doesn't know any better, you know, blah, 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 along them lines. And the Lord touched that puppy. Now, I know people are going to laugh about that. Yeah, right, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But I'm going to tell you something. People that go to church and people that has experienced a healing or witnessed such a thing, there's no laughing involved because they know that it's real. They know. I tell the people out there that watch this video that might be skeptic, or they might be skeptical of what I'm saying, or they might be laughing or something like that. Go on the internet and look at how many times people were given death sentences because they were riddled with tumors, this, that, and the other, and they went back home with the death sentence hanging over their head. And they went that Sunday to church and got prayed for and went back to the doctors and were completely healed. And the doctors were absolutely dumbfounded. Now, if you want to laugh and you want to make fun, Google. See how many thousands of stories just within the last 25 years throughout this nation that story you will hear over and over. I was given a death sentence, or I was riddled with such and such a disease, and I went to church and got prayed for. Went back to the doctor for the next visit, and they were astonished, could not find it. Or I went to have surgery to have a tumor removed. It was a very dangerous surgery. It was in my brain, blah, blah, blah. And they did one more scan before taking me in the operating room, and there was no tumor. And they had no clue what happened. There was nothing. You'll read story after story after story after story. These things happen. But if you know Christ as your personal Savior, then you know what I'm telling is the truth. And if you're skeptical, and if you're one of them that just don't believe or don't want to believe, the evidence is right there. All you got to do is just look for it. It's right there. There's plenty of it. There's plenty of it out there. This ain't some new thing. Jesus has been in the healing business since he walked this earth. He healed the blind. He raised the dead. Okay? He healed leopards. He cast out demons. Okay? He never said once he went to heaven that he was going to stop doing such things. On the contrary. But you have to believe. You have to accept. You have to accept him as your Savior. And I've known people that have never even been saved that's reached a point in their life where something tragic has happened and they cried out to the Lord. They didn't even know what they were talking about. And yet the Lord answered the prayer. And it changed their lives. There's plenty of those stories too. But so many people want to laugh. They want to make fun of Christians. They think we're a bunch of, you know, holy roller, you know, loon balls, Jesus freaks. I've heard it all. But you know, the sad part about it is we're the most loving people that there is, because Jesus teaches us and tells us that. And what's even worse is those people that laugh and make fun of, and we see a lot of that today, they're going to stand before that very God that they mock, that they make fun of, that they deny, and they're going to be judged as me and everyone else. And I'm telling you, don't be in those shoes. Don't be in those shoes. If you like my video, hit subscribe, hit the like button. I'm on my way to work now to the second job. I got to get off of here. Take care. God bless. I hope you like my video. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye.